welcome to this discussion as part of our Opening Heaven's Door training. Today we're going to be looking at John's exploration of Jesus' healing of the man with the shrivelled hand. And to help we've got Denise, John and Liz. I thought that there were some really interesting insights, but John, to start us off, you're talking about having the right atmosphere isn't vital, but I think a lot of people can think, actually, what about the faith environment? Because people are often taught you've got to have the right faith environment. Would you like to expand that a little for us?
I think that, in one sense, I think we can make too much the faith idea, in a sense, because the very fact, I think, suppose it's a healing service, the very fact that the church has laid on a healing service, the very fact that people have come along, the very fact that a prayer minister is there with an expectation to pray, I think that there is faith there. When Jesus spoke about faith, he said, you need a mustard seed.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yes, it's good to have faith there, but a mustard seed isn't much. And the trouble with that is I think it's very easy to start blaming, folk didn't have the faith for it. And we make that like an excuse. And so, whereas, I think faith is a great thing, I think that let's keep the mustard seed concept in mind. That's all we needed. And the fact you've got a service there and people there and prayer ministers there, I think that'll do for a mustard seed, won't it?
No, that's great. Thank you, John. So the whole idea about worrying about the atmosphere, do other people have any reflections on that? I expect we've all experienced situations where there's been tension around. How does it affect us, or doesn't it?
I think it's good to have that expectation, but and remind yourself of who you're coming to, which helps to raise the level slightly. But I think, I don't think it matters where you're doing it, where you're praying for someone. You can pray for someone on the tube train or, in a lift. And as long as your eyes are in the right place and your heart's in the right place, it's not as important.
Yeah, because I think the thing is, it can be very important for us, but probably not as important for God.
Yeah.
And so, for me, for example, I like there to be quiet so I can actually listen to somebody. I know full well God doesn't need that. It's just I like it.
Yeah.
And, I'm not God actually. So, maybe in the end it's not that important. But I just find it more comfortable. How much difference does that make? I don't know. So I think you were going to say something.
I was just reflecting that I think as humans we do pick up on the atmosphere and it does affect us, but I tend to agree with you. How we feel about something isn't the same as what God feels about it. I think that we are called to participate in what He's doing.
I was just, when you said that, I was just thinking of that, it's a totally different context, but, when Paul is talking about his thorn in the flesh, what God says to him is that my power is made perfect in weakness. And I wonder about healing, in that if the atmosphere is just like I want it, and all the conditions just suit me, fine, there is always then the tendency to think, well, that is why it went well.
Yeah.
It went well because God did it, actually.
Yes.
That's the only reason things go well, because God did something.
Yeah.
And it's not down to me, or what I think, or the atmosphere. So maybe in some ways our comfort is the least important thing to God, because that allows Him to work in whatever way He wants to.
And I think too we can think it matters, as you were saying, it matters for me as a prayer minister. I might be aware of the atmosphere around, but I don't expect the person who's coming for prayer is aware of it.
Yes.
And actually they're the most important person here, them and God.
Yes.
And sometimes my thoughts about, these other things are going on, or my distractions are me taking my eyes off God rather than expecting him just to think, it doesn't matter what else is happening.
No, I was just going to say, quite often God surprises us by doing something out of the ordinary in an odd place. And, there isn't any formula or,
No, I thought that was really helpful to think that this is not about atmosphere. It's about God, and God is everywhere.
Yes.
And a bit of atmosphere is nothing to God.
Yes. But because some of the healing stories in the Bible took place, amidst conflict, which is not a good atmosphere.
No.
It didn't stop Jesus doing stunning things.
Yes. So then, John, you went on talking about Jesus saying to the man, stand up in the middle of the crowd. How do we think about healing beginning as we worship? That idea of standing up and putting your eyes on Jesus. Is that being a starting point?
I think there's two things going on there, actually. Focusing our worship is a brilliant thing. And I think that connects us with the heart of God, the love of God. I think standing up at the front can be quite a daunting thing. And that takes courage and a certain boldness to be willing to be vulnerable in that place. And I think not everybody feels up to that. There's been times where I've sort of thought, oh, do I really want to go to the front? I'd much rather be at the back or at the side.
But I don't think that's necessarily, in this case, what we're saying. It's not that you've got to stand up, but he called that person to stand and to take his eyes off what everybody else is doing. Yeah, I agree. Getting people to stand up is not necessarily the way we all start worshipping.
No.
It's also to do, I think, that I don't know whether it's actually about a change of posture, but I often find in ministry that getting someone to either stand or to sit somewhere else changes what they're doing. For example, there are some people and they continually are talking about their issue, what the problem is, and they're going over it again and again. And it's very hard to, okay, well, let's pray now because I'll keep carrying on. And some of the physical act of saying, okay, well, let's come and sit here or let's stand, just brings that sense we're doing something different now. This is a time to pause, we're move on to the next stage, and that physical movement can help that sometimes, I think.
So it will vary in different situations. And I love the fact that we have a little red rug, which we have quite a few jokes about, but people come and we've got different people who will want the red rug because they will kneel on it or sit on it or stand on it, and that is their way of saying, I'm sitting on the heart of God, or in the love of the Father, recognising, and it's a change of perspective.
Yes, it's a vehicle for that sort of change of focus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I think is so important, and I think it's it must have been so amazing when people saw Jesus standing right in front of them that they wouldn't have needed to keep chatting because they thought, this is it, this is my moment, and that's what we're trying to bring about an encounter.
And it's, as you say, a way of making them physically change what they're looking at. Instead of relying on the prayer ministers, they're now looking, let's look at Jesus.
And do we have different ways of worship? John says he likes it to be quiet or to have space. That's when he's praying. But I know amongst us we have different ways of worship that help us to connect with God.
Yeah, I love to worship with song, and the words help me to get my head in the right place and my heart in the right place. So
if you were praying for someone, would you like to have a few minutes? Let's just put this song on.
Yeah.
Let's let it bring us back to what we're meant to be doing.
I really would. I would find that really helpful because for me it changes the atmosphere and it sort of takes all of you, if you like, because music does something that silence doesn't for me. So I find that really helpful.
Let's try it.
I think all of our senses can be used. I was just thinking, there are certain stained glass windows will really help me lift my heart up and worship God in a different way. Or
Not stop putting stained glass windows in, are we? They're expensive.
no, but I'm just thinking there are many cues.
Sure.
Like some people holding a cross or a wooden heart, or even just holding the Bible. It just, they're cues, aren't they?
Yes, it brings that change about. Yeah.
And so I think in churches, when we pray, knowing that we've been in a worship service or that this is part of it, or if there's worship that's going on around, sometimes we can think of that as, oh, I can't hear what's going on. But if we remind ourselves, actually worship is going on here, God is being praised as we are praying, that may also help us to think it doesn't matter that I can't hear, God knows.
There's something here about the context of the ministry, isn't it? Because, for example, a healing service, the ministry is an integral part of that worship service. If it's prayer in a church, after the usual Sunday service, again, it's part of what you've just been doing. Maybe in a kind of a, like here, a healing centre whereby folk come in a sense cold, it's a different situation because they haven't just had the benefit of, an hour's service or whatever, or worship. And it is a different atmosphere, isn't it?
It is, but people are still coming expecting and coming hungry for that, and we
Sure.
try and engender an atmosphere where that's going on. I'm sure we could do more, but it's Denise.
I was going to say, but that's part of the reason we have the slides, the rolling slideshow, which lift people's eyes up onto
Sure.
God, or some of the other resources, or other people who pick up the Bible and read that for a little while.
So when they're coming into the session, it's not a cold thing. They've already had some engagement with God. Yeah.
And if people are praying at home with people, and when I do that with people, I spend time beforehand praying.
Yes.
And asking God, trusting that we're not coming, I don't come with nothing.
Yes.
What
about though? One of the things that we're trying to experiment with here a bit is, phone ministry, and that could be a bit, in a sense, cold, if you like, in that you're ringing somebody up. Oh, hi, have you got a few minutes? We'll pray for you, and they might not have any. They might not have had a quiet time or anything. Well, how can we help that? How would you?
Well, I don't think we need, if we're saying that atmosphere doesn't matter, Jesus, when he was out and around, people weren't coming and worshipping beforehand. The man with the shrivelled hand, yes, he was in the synagogue. Various other people, the Bartimaeus, that wasn't in a worship situation. We need to be careful we don't think, oh, I've got to have worshipped beforehand. Or we end up thinking, I've got to get the situation right.
Plus the fact inherent within the way we lead encounter prayer, we're worshipping God the Father for his love for that person at the very beginning, before we move into the phase of what is it
that is an act of worship itself.
It
Yes,
is.
that's true.
But also whether people are using encounter what we use, or whether people at home are just use whatever model they're using, all of us are seeking to be followers of Jesus. And I think we need to, when we come, it's that reminder as we're beginning to pray for somebody, hey Jesus, this is all about you.
Yeah.
I want to take my eyes off the problem this person has got. We want to say, Jesus, you've got all authority, come with what you've got. And we will all worship in different ways, but this is about our reminder that it's turning our eyes to him and off the problem. And we will do it in different ways, but that's okay, because God's created us individually and uniquely. Then the next point that John, you raised was, how do we think about healing? And Jesus' comment about which is right to do good or to do evil, to bring life or to kill. How do we think about if we hold back healing, it's evil, if we don't offer to pray for people?
confess I've never really thought of it like that, but it's probably something that is a truth. If you withhold the opportunity to pray with somebody, and particularly if you're feeling that God's prompting you and you don't do it, that probably is, sounds harsh, but an evil act. It's certainly not an act of loving obedience and worship to God, is it? Sounds quite hard to make it call it evil. But yeah, it's the opposite of doing good, isn't it?
And it's so easy not to offer the healing.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I'm in a hurry,
Yeah.
I can't be bothered.
This doesn't feel like
it
right
doesn't feel like
moment,
that
no.
moment.
Yeah.
And you don't.
Yeah.
And of course, they're the ones that really suffer. And we can justify why you didn't do it till the cows come home, but they're the ones that didn't get prayer, and that's a real tragedy.
And is it part of it that we perhaps think God's not going to do anything, so are we going to look foolish? And that is evil in a way, because we're undermining God, aren't we? And our view of him is less than it should be.
Because we're more worried about our reputation than what he could do.
Yes.
But I think we're all guilty of getting hung up on outcomes, what we perceive the outcome ought to be. Does that marry up with the outcome that the person wants? Whereas actually to take people into God's presence and allow him to bless them in whatever way he deems right for that moment, that's always a good, positive outcome. But we don't necessarily, you're not always able to tangibly measure it at that moment.
And there's also, it's something about withholding. Jesus didn't go round and pray for absolutely everybody and say, right, okay, well, you're all over there in the marketplace. You are, I'll go round and pray for all of you. There was something about people coming. And we also don't want it to become so that if we see anybody, everybody sort of makes a dash for sort of scarpers, because they feel as though if we come near them, that they've got to have prayer.
Yes.
There is a balance in that, and we can also, it may feel as though we're wimping out, but we can still pray silently, Father, would you bless, and bring about opportunities for us to bring life to this person if we don't feel that at that particular moment we can do it.
And I think in my case, I think God definitely will prompt you that he wants you to pray for someone, and it's our choice. And I was just thinking, when you were saying that, about we'll run up to the man on crutches and we'll be fighting, right, let me pray, because we feel it's our duty, but it's listening to that prompt, isn't it? Do you want me to do that? And that's special, isn't it? Because he's choosing to use you.
Or most of us think, you don't want me to do that.
Yeah. Please.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's about being sensitive to God, isn't it? It's about, all of this is about all of our lives and our worship lives and how we pursue God and let him pursue us. Because as these things happen, we have more of his heart for people. And it's the reminder that it's him, not us.
It's just really making me ponder though. If it's a case of our human compassion, like if you see somebody who's really struggling in some way, a bit physically or whatever, and you think, oh, I really want to pray for them, is that us acting out of our own compassion, or us mirroring and, if you like, absorbing God's compassion for that person? It's just pondering in my mind there.
Does it matter?
Probably
In a sense,
not.
I'm not sure. Let's hope that we are quite infused with Jesus. I think it's very difficult. Well, that's his compassion. That's my compassion. Doesn't matter. In the end, perhaps they all blend. And I really don't think that when we get to the pearly gates, he'll be saying, you had way too much compassion. That just wasn't right. That was, you should have dialed down a bit on the compassion bit. It's not going to happen, is it? I think the challenge would be way the other way.
No, I tend to agree, but I was just thinking, is it out of my compassion I want God to to do this. I want God to come up with this result, I suppose.
I think it can be both. I don't think it matters. But I do think we need to be wise in what we do and how we offer things. It needs to be done in a way that people can say yes or say no. I've had ministry done appallingly to me, which has left me not wanting anything to do with it. And we do have to we have a responsibility to treat people with grace and kindness. We are not lumps of meat. We are those for whom God died. And all of this is, how do we treat people well? How do we help them to hold on rather than putting stumbling blocks in their way? And I think one of the other things, John, you were talking about, we've all experienced situations where it feels that God's withholding healing, and yet we know that he wants to bring life. How can we help people to hold on to God in and with that tension, that God is doing something, but it's not yet, and it's not the answer that they want in the time scale that they want?
This happens a lot, doesn't it? I mean, the things I think God ought to do, that he doesn't seem to, jump to and click his fingers on, I think he ought to, is quite a lot, really. And it's, part of it is what I hope, draws us closer to him, because we want to, keep as close to him as we can, and we're desperate for more of him. Part of it is that submission to his agenda, for my life and for the people for whom I pray. It's all these things, and it, I hope, draws us closer to him, and that's what we can bring to others. But it's not easy.
And I just believe that any time you spend being still and in his presence changes you, no matter, even if it's only a tiny piece, and the more you do it, the more you become like him, and he is able to minister to you. Because if you're rushing around and not stopping to ask for his help, or his healing, you're not going to get it.
I remember we used to take the family to the beach, and on the beach you'd find these little coloured gems. They weren't gems at all, they were bits of broken glass.
Yeah.
But the waves had gone over this glass thousands and thousands of times that in the end had transformed it into something really beautiful. Just one wave over a broken bottle doesn't do anything. Thousands do. And it's a bit like that, every time we come to him, there is something changes, because we're, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But we may not see it as we like to.
It's quite difficult though when somebody is really hankering after a deep healing, and they think, well, why wouldn't God do it? And trying to help them to see that subtle transformation where God is bringing life in an evolutionary way, almost like sort of slow, subtle changes, is quite hard to sustain that person.
It is, and I think our attitude to them is so important, and it's, we have to exhibit a willingness to stand with them over the time, and not just make them think it's their fault or they've failed in some way. But if we're going to say, I don't understand, but we'll be here for you. As long as it takes, we're here for you.
But that's difficult too, because we can't all say, if we are as prayer ministers, and for those who are watching, that if you pray for somebody once, that then means you've got to be involved in you've got to be committed to them forever. God is committed to them forever for their healing. We are called for different parts of the journey.
Yes, but, in a sense, the aim of this course is to equip those in what we would call ordinary churches. And it's not just that one Prime Minister is committed to that person, but the body of Christ, the fellowship is there for that person. They're part of that. and they will live out their lives as part of that
Yeah.
body of believers.
Yes. I think that's helpful. It's about us together. And
That's
I think,
right.
and two, there are times I think when people think they see us as Prime Ministers and they can make the assumption, oh, everything's fine for you, your life has always been good. And for us, every so often, just to say, God's been at work changing me, can also help, so that people know that we've experienced God's faithfulness to us over the years as well, can also help. Well, thank you all. Hope you find that helpful, and bless you in your ministry.